What it is, what it was, and what it do, y'all. It's your girl Jackie from Hey Jackie Beauty, and welcome back to my channel. So today, we're going to be talking about the conditioning step in this hair basic series. So if you want to know more about conditioning and some of my thoughts, then keep on watching. Also, I want to make sure you give everyone a chance to subscribe and join the beauty club. Love to have you guys be part of the fam here. So make sure to hit that bell button so to get notifications of when I upload. Also, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I'm on all those platforms as Hey Jackie Beauty. So yeah, just go ahead and DM me, comment on something, retweet, tweet at me, any of those things, and I'll make sure to reply to you guys. Okay, now let's get on with the video. Okay, so in this hair basics video, we'll be talking about conditioning. Now, I already talked about the basic components of a hair regimen as well as the components of the cleansing step. So if you missed those two videos, I'll make sure to link them down below and the little eye up above. But today we're just going to be going over conditioning, which is conditioners and deep conditioners. And I also have a notebook here because I have some parts that I really want to make sure I get right because my brain can only keep but so much information. And also, too, as a reminder, all the links and articles and things that I reference or that I use to research will be linked down in the info box below. And yeah, I think that's it. So, conditioners. For the conditioning step, I honestly really like doing this step because I feel like I get a lot of the really good results that I want in my hair during this time. So for this step, you can use a conditioner. I usually skip them and just go straight to deep conditioners. But for all of these proponents on this section, it applies to conditioner just like it does to deep conditioners. Conditioners, honestly, like the only difference I would say is that you don't leave it in your hair nearly as long as you do a deep conditioner. So yeah. But anyway, we're going to be focusing on deep conditioners with this. And so for deep conditioners, I have them separated into two categories. I have moisture-based deep conditioners and then protein-based deep conditioners. Now, the moisture-based deep conditioners are meant to rehydrate the hair and reinforce moisture so that your hair is nice and supple. And so these typically have water as the first ingredient. And also, they typically take a longer time to process. And so when you look at the instructions, it might say anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes. And there are also some overnight masks, and those tend to be moisture based too. And that's just because it takes a while for the ingredients to work and to do its magic. And also too, heat really helps open the cuticle and allows all those moisture components to really get in there and do its job. So for protein based, these are meant to help rebuild the proteins, and these are typically a shorter processing time because proteins work pretty fast. Now, in the category of protein-based deep conditioners, there are some deep conditioners that have both protein and moisture, and this is just meant to help reinforce the balance of protein and moisture in your hair because some proteins can be kind of strong and be a little bit too much for the hair and make it hard, which we will talk about that later. But yeah, for the protein moisture ones, this is just to help reinforce balance and to help make sure your hair is healthy without the proteins doing too much. Now, as for important ingredients for protein and moisture-based deep conditioners, I have three things that I want to talk about, and they are emollients, humectants, and then proteins. So let's start off with emollients. So emollients, it was started off as kind of like a skincare ingredient or term that hair care now borrows it and uses it for its different products. But emollients in skincare, it was meant to spread easily and to soften and smooth without getting tacky. And also too, emollients are generally hydrophobic, meaning that they kind of repel water. And so in your hair is meant to soften and moisturize, is meant to also provide slip, and it's supposed to help seal and lock in the hair. So that's where the hydrophobic part comes in. And so examples of different emollients are sweet almond oil, argan oil, silicones, mango butter, grapeseed oil, coconut oil, olive oil, shea butter, jojoba oil, mineral oil, as well as fatty alcohols, proteins, and also hydrolyzed proteins. And so with the first five things that I mentioned, so sweet almond oil, argan oil, silicones, mango butter, and grapeseed oil, those are lighter emollients. And so for the heavier emollients, you have coconut oil, olive oil, shea butter, jojoba oil, and mineral oil. And so for my hair tends to like the heavier emollients. So I really gravitate to products that have like shea butter in it, or coconut oil, coconut butter, or jojoba oil in them. I generally find that products with the lighter emollients don't really seem to do much for my hair. And so for my hair strand thickness, I have like fine to medium hair strands. And so really with emollients, it does definitely depend on the thickness of your strands, and also to just in general what you like as a result when it comes to your hair. So I tend to like products that kind of like weigh down my hair because I just have so much of it and it's so big. So I tend to go for the heavier emollients. If you have fine hair but it's not as thick and you want something that's a little bit more fluffier, I would try for products that have the lighter emollients. And so next we're going to go on to humectants. And so humectants are meant to attract and lock or hold in moisture, but it's not necessarily sealing in the moisture. So humectants are hydrophilic, meaning that it uses hydrogen bonding to hold and attract water. And so these don't seal the hair and the cuticle, it just holds it in, which is very important. You need something that will hold in the water for you. And also too, humectants are dependent on air humidity and temperature, so please be aware of that. So some examples of humectants are glycerin, honey, agave, aloe vera, flaxseed, and panthenol. So for my hair, I find my hair really likes honey and aloe vera, and actually flaxseed too. It likes it fairly well. I found that I had issues with glycerin, and that's because here in the Northwest, our summers are dry and our winters are cold and wet. And I found that I was using a lot of products with glycerin during the summer. And so like I said before, these products use hydrogen bonding to attract and hold water. Well, the thing too with glycerin is that it tries to create a balance. So between the atmosphere and your hair, it tries to make sure that everyone has like an equal amount of water. So because it was dry in the summer and I was using glycerin products in the summer, it was taking out the moisture that was in my hair and putting it out into the air because it's trying to create a balance. And so I ended up with just frizzy hair that was just kind of crazy. So I learned to not use glycerin during the summer and to stay away from that. At first I was very afraid of glycerin, just didn't use it at all, but I learned that as long as I'm just paying attention to when I'm using it and how the humidity is and everything, I should be fine when it comes to glycerin. So you hear a lot of people say that if they live in more humid areas that they'll tend to use glycerin products, and it works really well for them. It just depends on where you live and the humidity and the temperature. And so humectants are meant to hydrate and attract moisture, while emollients are meant to soften and seal in the moisture. And so a good conditioning product, whether it is protein or moisture-based, has both of these ingredients and they work well together. Typically, emollients are made of larger molecules, so you don't have to worry about the humectants, which typically are smaller molecules. You don't have to worry about them penetrating through and getting through the hair if they're in the same product. It all is supposed to work together so that you get your moisture and you get your sealage too. All right, and so last but not least, let's go into proteins. And so hair is made up of 80 to 90% of proteins, which is called keratin, and keratin is made up of amino acids. And it's good to know these different terms, keratin and amino acids, because these are the different forms of the way that protein is listed in the ingredient list in your products. And so some examples of proteins are hydrolyzed silk protein, hydrolyzed collagen protein, hydrolyzed keratin, amino acids, as well as peptides. And there's also hydrolyzed wheat protein, hydrolyzed soy protein, and hydrolyzed quinoa protein. And so as you've kind of seen, there are hydrolyzed versions of proteins that are plant-based. And so for people who may be vegan or want to use vegan products, I would look for those kinds of versions of protein if you need a protein treatment. And here I want to insert a little blurb here about biotin. A lot of people think that biotin and protein do the same thing, but they actually work well together. And so biotin is a type of vitamin B, but it's also known as vitamin H. And so it helps out keratin and it helps out build the infrastructure of proteins in your hair. And so this is not necessarily a cure-all for hair loss because it generally works on the hair that already exists. Biotin doesn't really grow new hair from your scalp, if that makes sense. And so now I guess you're wondering, okay, Jackie, when should I use a protein deep conditioner? When should I use a moisture one? Well, here are some of the things I found from my experience. And so I tend to reach for protein deep conditioners when I feel like my hair is going through moisture overload. And that's when your hair feels like mushy and limp. And then when it dries and when you try to style it, it doesn't really hold a style and it gets kind of like frizzy and kind of wonky, but it doesn't feel brittle or hard. That's typically when I know I have moisture overload, and then I reach for the protein deep conditioners. Because with moisture overload, you just don't have the structure, which is what protein provides. And so by doing a protein treatment, you're reinforcing or adding back the structure into your hair. And also, too, when I have breakage, which breakage is when you have like just small bits of your hair coming off. It's different from when you have shedding. And shedding you can typically tell because it's a longer hair shaft, usually depending on how long your hair is. But also, too, you'll see the little white bulb at the end of the hair. And that just means it just came from your scalp. And so when I notice I have a lot of breakage, I reach for the protein deep conditioners because, again, breakage just, to me, symbolizes that the structure of your hair is not on par to what it needs to be with all like the manipulation, different things you're doing with it. Now, I reach for the moisture ones if I have protein overload. And I've experienced this too, where I went crazy and was using a lot of protein deep conditioners. And I just noticed my hair got really dry and brittle. And it just was kind of like stiff. You know what I mean? That's just because I had way too much structure, but not enough moisture to provide some flexibility. And so I went ahead and used a moisture deep conditioner, and that took care of the problem pretty quickly, actually. And so, yeah, if I have protein overload, I use a moisture deep conditioner. If my hair feels dry and brittle in general, and if it seems dull, I'll then reach for a moisturizing deep conditioner too. And that's because water just helps rehydrate the hair and give it more life, and then it looks nice and shiny and bouncy, and it's soft. And so the frequency of which you use a protein deep conditioner versus a moisture one just depends on the hair, as well as a bunch of other outside factors when it comes to weather, hormones, even your diet, whether you're drinking enough water, taking care of your hair, like that all contributes to how much you should use protein versus moisture. For my hair, what I found is that I tend to reach for the moisture deep conditioners, I would say 3 out of the 4 times that I wash my hair in a month. And then maybe once a month, I'll go for a protein moisture deep conditioner. And then that's also because my hair is protein sensitive. And you can tell if your hair is protein sensitive, where like if you feel like you've used a protein deep conditioner like 2 times in a row and your hair just seems, again, like it's having protein overload, then you'll know that your hair is protein sensitive. So it does take some trial and error. But usually for a protein sensitivity or protein overload, it doesn't take that too many trials to like figure it out and see what's going on. So yeah, I tend to reach for the moisturizing conditioners more often too, because I'm also high porosity. And so that just means that my pores just release that water, as well as it takes some water too pretty well, but it doesn't hold it very well. So I tend to reach for moisturizing deep conditioners just to help bring all that moisture back in that it keeps releasing. And so basically when it comes to conditioning, you have conditioners and deep conditioners. They both serve the same purpose but have different means of getting to the end goal. So I tend to go for deep conditioners. Now for the 2 types of conditioners, there are protein-based deep conditioners as well as moisture-based deep conditioners. And in them, the important ingredients that you want to look for are emollients, humectants, as well as proteins. And so when it comes to when I use a protein versus a moisture deep conditioner, I reach for the moisture-based deep conditioners when my hair has protein overload or when it's dry, brittle, and dull. And then I tend to reach for a protein-based deep conditioner when I have moisture overload or when I have breakage and my hair is not really curling back up the way it's supposed to. And so yeah, I hope this video was helpful for you guys. Please make sure to check out the articles down below. It has a little bit more in-depth explanation of each thing that I talked about today. And yeah, let me know, what do you tend to go for? Do you go for protein-based deep conditioners or do you go for the moisture-based ones? Or do you like the middle ground and tend to go for the ones that have both in it? I'd like to know. And also, I'll make sure to link to my favorite protein-based, moisture-based, and then protein-moisture-based deep conditioners that I use fairly often. So yeah, thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing, and I'll talk to you guys later. Much love. Bye.